folks, I'm Tom Vessel.
And I'm Melody.
Welcome to Double Trouble. We're taking a look today at a humongous game in more ways than one. The box itself is giant. The game itself is a fairly involved Euro-style game, which are the kind you tend to like.
Yes.
Not sure where that came from, but the box cover does not inspire me to want to play the game. I really don't know.
It's a triangle.
Well, it's like a triangle, but it's an optical illusion. Ooh. Here's the deal. Anachrony is in the future. Earth's going to be hit by some comet or meteor or something. You are a group of people who you want to help everybody, and you want them to follow your path.
Yes. The
path to harmony, the path to power, whatever it is. And evacuate some people, make everything in your image. It is a worker placement game with time travel. Time travel doesn't normally work in these type of games. Let's see if it does here. Now, please don't use this as an explanation of the game. I'm just going to give you an overview, a brief overview of how the game works. There's actually several different rules involved. Each player is going to be choosing a faction, and you can play the factions fairly similar to each other. These boards are functionally identical if you use the A sides, and then if you use the B sides, there's going to be some changes that actually have some pretty wide repercussions, but they're going to different things are going to be different on the boards. Even without that, players will have their own little player board, which tells you your starting resources, and you'll also get a leader. You have a choice of 2 different leaders who gives you a special ability that you'll be able to use over the course of the game. It also gives you your preferred way of helping people evacuate the planet near the end of the game. As I said, the game is trying to get a lot of victory points. It comes with a score pad and shows you various ways to get victory points. As the game goes by, there are going to be buildings you can build that are going to be worth victory points. There are going to be super projects which are worth victory points. You can get victory point tokens. And also, if you'll notice at the very top up here, at the end of the game, you'll get 3 victory points if you have the most in just some different goals that come out. So for example, if you have the most workers at the end of the game, you'll get 3 victory points from having that. So there's various ways to get victory points over the course of the game. Players are going to be taking turns and placing workers on the board. The game comes with 4 different types of workers. They are scientists, engineers, administrators, and then these brains, which are basically wilds. And on your turn, you're going to be placing workers on the board. Now, there are many places where you'll be able to place a worker, like for example here, I can place this worker and he costs me a water. Although sometimes, and then he'll give me 3, and this building gives me 3 cubes when I build it. Sometimes you need a specific type of worker. Like for example, this building here shows the engineering symbol, and engineering must be put there for me to get a power core. However, most of the spots on the board are going to require you to be in battle suits or mechs or carriers. Each player gets several of these, and to use them at the beginning of a turn, players are going to have to power up a certain number of suits. So you can power up 3 of them for free on the base side of the board, and you can pay power cords to power up more of them. You're going to have your workers in an inactive and an active column. You can only ever use workers that are active, and when they're finished being used, most of the time they go to the inactive column, and there's only 2 ways to get them over. By putting a worker here and paying the water under your morale token, you have a morale token here, and moving that over this way, which brings all your inactive workers over. So that's going to cost more as time goes by, but it will give you these, which gives you more morale points at the end of the game. Or you can take a free action. Each player has a certain number of tokens that they can spend at any, on their turn as free actions, and you can just you can lose morale, which might lose you points at the end of the game, but move everybody over. You're forcing them to work. You can load these people on these mechs then and place them on the board. So maybe I can place this one here with a scientist on it. The different things that you're going to do on the board are going to give you more workers. This area here gives you more workers at the beginning of each round. You'll turn over a card that will tell you the workers that are available that round. And by going here, you can take one of those workers and get a bonus that's associated with that worker. You can go over here to get cubes. At the beginning of each round, you'll turn over a card that will show you what cubes are placed here. When you place a mech, you'll get the cube associated with it, as well as one of those cubes. If you go here, this is how you build buildings. You usually pay cubes and things to build one of the available buildings. There's always 2 buildings of each type available at the top of the board. And to do that, you will pay the cost on your board itself, not on the building. Every building of each color costs the same. It depends where you build it. So if the first building would cost me a purple, 2 gray cubes, and a water, and so on and so forth. And those buildings will give you more actions and things that you can do. Sometimes they give you a one-time bonus, and if nothing else, they're worth points at the end of the game. You can also build super projects. Super projects are harder to build. We have a timeline here where there will be super projects available. You can only build one where your token is in the timeline. They cost a whole lot more, and they also cost some breakthrough tokens to build them. Breakthrough tokens are gotten in this column here, where you'll send scientists. You will pick either the size, the shape of the token, a square, a circle, or a triangle, or you can pick the type of token that you want it to be, and you will roll the other die. When you do that, you will get the appropriate breakthrough tokens. These tokens are worth 1 point at the end of the game, but they're also often used to build those big giant super projects, which will not only give you points, but give you special abilities. And then there's places where everyone can place their workers. Most of these spots, anybody will get blocked. You can go up here and get water. You can go down here and trade goods. You can go here to take any of the actions down here. It costs water, but also if you go here, you'll take the first player marker and go first next turn. So all this is being involved in the game, but as I mentioned, there's a timeline. Each turn of the game, players are going to be following a timeline here. You'll have one of your tokens to show where players are in the timeline. You can even play with an advanced timeline on the other side. But timelines are important for a couple of reasons. They show the progress of the game and what super project is available at any given point. But players also have these warp tiles. And one of the phases each round, players are going to pick 0, 1, or 2 of these warp tiles, reveal them, and place them down here. You're borrowing from yourself in the future. So here I'm taking an administrator, and I'm taking a mech, or maybe I wanted a gray cube and an engineer. There's different ones you can play. And when you play them, you're going to place them here. That gives you those things right away, which you can use, but it's going to cause you problems in the future. These warp tiles here, each round, players are going to roll a die, whoever has the most in each of these areas. And if you roll a triangle, you are going to take a paradox, or maybe even 2 paradoxes, or nothing. If you get 3 paradoxes, by the way, you're placing them up here, then you get an anomaly. An anomaly is a building that's going to be built into your timeline, which is worth negative points, although you can put a worker there and pay resources to get rid of it. So it's kind of a pain. And if these are still on the board at the end of the game, you're going to lose 2 points for each one that you can't fulfill because you need to fix the time. Now you'll do this by using yellow buildings. Yellow buildings will allow you to shift in time. So if your token was here, for example, it could shift back here, and then I could pay a black cube and get rid of an engineer, and get rid of both of these. I get them back, I could use them again if I want to. That's essentially me sending the person back in time. And when you do that, you're also going to be moving, each time you do that, up here on your time trips, which you can see can become a lot of points at the end of the game. In the timeline, there's one tile that's going to show that the asteroid's going to hit the Earth. When the asteroid hits the Earth, there's a lot of different things going to happen. It's going to signal the end of the game. The game will end after a certain number of turns, or you're going to put special tiles out on the board here that give like extra bonuses and things, and when all those tiles are gone, the game also ends. But when you do the timeline, each player is going to you do an evacuation, which can get them a whole lot of extra points. Each player has how to do an evacuation on their board, so this person needs 3 yellow buildings built, and they're going to get 3 points, plus 3 points for every purple cube that they have. So you can get a lot of points, and you have to go up here, but the first person to do it is going to get points. The last person, based on, let's say it's a 3-player game, the last person would get 3 fewer points. And you also have to send someone up there before the game ends. When the game ends, you will get points from all these different things that are going on, and like I said, I didn't even cover everything. There's a lot of things going on, and whoever has the most points is the winner. There are some modules that come with this game. There is a whole board that's included, and with rules if you want to play solo player. There is a doomsday module where maybe the comet actually won't hit Earth, and so players can argue back and forth and fight on here and do different experiments. And so this really will change up the game, because players who are looking to get a lot of points from the evacuation tile might not get them based on if it hits or not. There are cards that players can take and draft their starting resources rather than take the ones that the game gives you. You also, like I said, these can be turned over when players are playing their warp tiles. You might get some special bonuses or even negative things based on how you play them. So all this can be thrown in. There's a lot going on. Whew, there is a lot in this box. Now, the biggest thing I want to talk about is the rules. The rules were very well written. I was easily able to understand them, but there's a lot of symbology, which the back page does, and the book also comes and explains every single special ability that players have, the evacuations, what the special tiles do, the leader abilities, the endgame condition cards, each super project, and all the different buildings. There's just a lot of different things, and they were very easy to find them all in the rule book, although it's going to take you several turns to remember exactly what every symbol does. The tiles themselves are good quality. The dice are superb. The water, which is the money resource of the game, is good. My only complaint is in a 4-player game, you have to always remind people to take the 5 water drops, the dark blue ones, because you will run out of the ones very easily. I wish they had provided a few more of those. I like these cubes that they have here, but the game also, if you don't like those cubes, comes with tiles. We have never used these because why? The biggest thing, I guess, is the fact that the mechs don't really look like mechs, although there is an expansion that brings these mechs, and you can go watch my review to see if they're worth adding to your game or not. But like I said, there's a lot of pieces. The art is very well done. You know, see as you zoom up on the board here, it looks really cool, has a neat futuristic look to it. And even though there is a lot of symbology, after a while it does become kind of second nature as how to do it. Man, there's a lot to talk about here. The game itself is big and grandiose, I think.
It even covers a lot of table.
Yeah, it really does. It fills up the whole
Especially
table.
with 4 players.
Yeah, well, it didn't seem to cover that much less when we played with 2.
Yeah, but it's just all the pieces, and it's just spread out, and the player boards are pretty big. And
did you like it better with 2 or with 4?
I liked it better with 4.
Yeah, I think so too. And that seemed kind of odd because normally these heavier Euro games, I'm like, ooh, you know, 2 players we can get done faster.
Yeah.
It definitely plays faster with 2, but with 4, I don't know, you see how the different ways people were interacting, and I don't know, it just had a good chunk of feeling to it, especially if you're going to play with the Doomsday module, because it, you know, with 2 people just back and forth, and if you both decide the meteorite's not going to hit, you know, it's just not. With 4 people, there's more going on there. There is a lot of modules. The Doomsday module is cool. I don't think you need to use it. The drafting cards, definitely. The other sides of the warp tiles, I don't. That just seems to add a little bit too much. But the B sides of the player boards, definitely.
Yes.
They make each of the players feel very different. So what did you think about this worker placement, where you're putting workers out and charging up your mechs and sending them out?
I thought it was really cool trying to like wake up your workers and like, okay, I need this certain worker to go here, because either they'll help me get something more or they'll come back awake.
Right, some places when you place your worker there, when they come back, you don't have to put them in an entire
But there's not many
column.
of those places. And then you also have to like focus on like either money or different resources so that you can do certain actions, because if you don't, you can find yourself in a pretty bad spot.
And the game does have like a spiraling ending, and then when it gets to the end and that meteor hits,
everyone's rushing to do everything that they need to do in like either 3 turns or less.
right? And I mean, and you're going to get better spaces on the board, but then you have 2 less spaces on your own board to place mechs, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, and also the spaces might be really good, but you might want to not go to them so that you can try to keep going for like the next turn, but you also want to watch out for other players that might want to go there and end your turn before you're even ready for the game to be over.
Yeah. This game has a ton of variety in it. From the player boards to the different, I mean, there's different stacks of buildings. You're never going to go through every building. So the buildings, you might get a cool building combo. You might get, you know, depending, someone else might say, oh, I'm going to be building the super projects. And you're like, okay, should I do that or not?
Yeah, like that's another reason why I kind of like the 4-player game, because everyone can have their own path, and it helps you focus more on like a path that you want to go on. While in a 2-player game, like there's like this whole bunch of stuff that you might want to do that the other person might not, but because you're not really focusing on a single path, it might not help you in the end of the game.
Yeah, no, I do agree on that for sure. This is definitely a game where there's a lot of points, but I think the theme works.
It does.
Specifically the time travel. Now, time travel does two things. First of all, it is a hard concept to understand initially. So you're like, I'm placing these tiles, but they're going to hurt me, and then I have to pay them back off. In some instances, you can think of it essentially as a loan. You're borrowing cubes and people from yourself in the future.
Yeah.
But it kind of works because you got to go back in time, and you're like, hey, researchers, you can now do the super project. What? And hey, guys, I hired you to work 10 years ago.
So you got to go back in time.
But you can better watch that because you can get a lot of points that way. There's two ways of points in this game. There's lots of things to look out for. Building buildings, building super projects, the things at the end. But there's two ways you can get a ton of points. One is by going back in time.
Yes.
Do that a lot. Not only are you taking away negative points, you're giving yourself positives. And new time players, they may not catch that right away.
Yeah, like in our first game, like I did not do that at all. Like I try to just keep out that whole time travel so I can focus on other stuff.
And I only did it because some player who had already played before walked by and was like, you definitely need to do that. And I was like, oh, I will do it then. But it really is. And the other one is the evacuation. You can get if you build to that for the whole game, like your specific thing, you can get a lot of overall, and that can really swing a game.
Doomsday one, then that would.
Oh, that's true, right? Then that may or may not happen, right?
Yeah.
It's so overall, I was really impressed with this game. There's a lot going on, but I thought the theme worked. There's a lot of hard choices. I like worker placement games where the workers are different. So we have three main types of workers here. With the brains are every worker, but you have three main types of
like
workers.
The geniuses that can do all different
That's
stuff.
what they're called, geniuses. Yes. But I like that, and I like how I have different buildings, and I might build a cool combo between the buildings. And the money with water, sometimes you like have the water is essentially money in this game. You can get a lot of it, or you get too little, and then you run out of it, and you need to power up your mechs. And then should you waste? Do you whip your workers by making them morale go down, or do you give them water?
That way.
There's a lot of good choices. What are your thoughts on the game as a whole?
I really like this game. I do like how you're trying to get all these buildings and try to finish like a goal. Of getting lots of points, but like your own goal of like, okay, I see these cards up there that let me get points at the end, so I might like focus on that, or you try to focus on like different super projects that can get you a lot of points and even give you abilities, so you might want to finish them faster. It just looks really cool. Like it's also kind of like there's so many pieces. Where is this piece? But
yeah.
I just thought the game itself was like a really cool time travel game.
So what would you rate it?
Probably a 7.5.
All right, I actually rate it a little higher than Melody. I give it an 8. This is a really solid game. There's a lot of neat things in it. I feel like every game is very different, and I feel like we'll never see the end of all the different options. And there's even an expansion. Briefly, I'm doing an expansion review at the same time. I don't think the expansion is necessary, but it adds a really fun module, and it adds the 3D mechs. Two modules, I'm sorry. And it adds, oh yeah, you're right, 2 modules. And it adds the 3D mechs, which are really cool. You don't need them, but wow, that makes the game look like twice as good.
It does.
But man, if you like these heavy, chunky Euro games with a lot of variety, there is a little bit of luck in the game when you roll the dice to get the breakthroughs, or when you roll the dice to see if you get hit by the anomalies, the paradox triangles. There's a little bit of luck.
And also, if you play with more players, the luck of someone else might taking your spot, and then you have to really think around how you're going to get back to that.
But I like that because then here's the thing, even if someone else takes your spot, there's always other things to do.
Yeah.
There's so many places to choose in this game. Just really wonderful game overall. I like it a lot. So that's Anachrony. I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Melody.
And you've been watching us review Anachrony. We're Double Trouble.
Boom!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.